Um, on the other side of that final year was the Liverpool side, who, I mean, there was noise about Mo Salah playing in AFCON. It was not big enough. But now Mo Salah has no Carabao Cup to his name because he lost the final. No prospects of winning the Champions League because they got knocked out by PSG. Does their season all of a sudden end in an anticlimactic way if they just have the league? Because they've got the points buffer over Arsenal. They're in a comfortable place, and it looks odds on that they go on and they converge. But there was a quadruple on at some point. They were going to win the treble at some point when they fell off, obviously in the FA
FA
Cup,
Cup.
yeah, by Plymouth. Do you think at this point in time, minus these two competitions, if they just get the league, is it anticlimactic in terms of what it could have potentially turned out to be?
Liverpool have had a week from hell, being knocked out of the Champions League, and then following that up with a cup final loss against Newcastle. But absolutely not. If
Mm,
Liverpool go on to lift the Premier League title, this has been an excellent season. You come into the season as one of the big teams trying to win first and foremost the league or the Champions League or both. If
mm,
you end up with one, that means you've beaten the other 19 teams in your league over a period that stretches from August until May in a marathon that I consider the hardest thing to do in football, winning a league title, particularly in an England where there are so many competitive teams, and in recent times, though it has been turned into a farmers league by Pep and his boys. You win the Premier League title, that is a successful season. Does not matter what you've done anywhere else, especially for Liverpool, who have won Champions League titles before,
mm,
and not done well in the league. Well, previously, the last two Champions League titles that they won in 2005, finished fifth, 30 points off champions Chelsea in that season. And then they won again in 2019, and that was the season of the heartbreak in the league where they finished 2 points behind Manchester City, even though they had 97 points. And where Liverpool are concerned, and the league specifically, Chuck, I
mm,
think more than the Champions League, they've coveted the league. So where a team like a Man United felt that they should have won more Champions League titles under Sir Alex Ferguson because of what they did in the league, and they coveted the Champions League so much, or a Chelsea who Roman Abramovich pumped the money into Chelsea, and they started winning league titles almost immediately. And for the longest time, the Holy Grail was the Champions League, and eventually they won that. Or a City, who same thing, they
mm,
won all those league titles, and the Holy Grail was the Champions League. For Liverpool, it's the league because, especially the most special one was the one under Klopp, of course, because it was the first time in 30 years. But if you do go back 30 years from that point, Liverpool have 18 league titles. The next best team, I believe, has seven, right?
mm,
And the Scotsman at Old Trafford says that he's gonna knock them off their effing perch. I was
mm.
like, how likely is that? Like, there's a big gap that you're trying to overhaul.
Yeah.
And he overhauled Liverpool, and Liverpool prided themselves on being the most successful team in England. They still are in terms of overall titles won, right? But they did fall behind in terms of league titles to Manchester United. This one gives them right there equal with United at 20. So they're back on top. And I do think because of what happened in the last 35 years, they have really coveted the league even more than the Champions League. For them, that is their holy grail. So a season where Klopp left and you thought there was going to be an emotional downturn where they are all mourning the loss or the departure of Klopp, and here comes in the manager from Feyenoord. We don't really know what to expect, especially how they fell off last season. And then he comes in and straight away, they win the league. Oh man, that is a brilliant season. Regardless of how they've fallen away in the other competitions, I still think if they win the league, it's not anticlimactic. Now, if they lose it, it's a different conversation.
I think when you look back, when the campaign is done, you say, well done for having won the league. But while you're living it in real time, you have no business losing to Plymouth. You have no reason. I mean, you must be the stronger
Manchester
team.
City struggled against Plymouth as well.
Yeah, but they won in the end. And that's what I'm trying to get at. That when you are odds-on favorites to win, and you are this team that's on top of the Champions League table, you're top of the local domestic table as well. What was Plymouth? And then you fall. Fine, it's the magic of the FA Cup. It happens. And then, yeah, fine, you could have gotten better teams to play against in the knockouts than PSG because you finished top of the league. You don't want to get PSG. Give me someone like a PSV, as Arsenal were happy to have, and they dispatched them. But this is what this team was able to do, at least under Klopp that we might not go all the way to win it, but we go deep in this competition. We can beat the PSGs. I mean, they were beating Real Madrid and other big teams in the table format of the Champions League earlier in the season. And when they get to PSG, you're like, guys, this is what you were made for. Anfield nights, apparently, we keep hearing are magical. There was not enough magic on the night. And if you're living off that magic, that euphoria, and Mo Salah's goal scoring records and stuff like that, you're like, we should be doing something great this season. And so for it to not have happened,
Check's the worst possible draw they could have gotten in the Champions League, right? And the reason for it is because PSG were mucking about in the first part of the league phase, the table phase, and then they've caught fire. They well on the way to winning a League One title once again, and there's an argument that they are the most informed team in Europe at the moment. Think about the fact that, and as I'm saying, it's the quirk of how PSG played early on, and then how the table works. Because if Liverpool had finished in the position of a Barcelona, they get Benfica and then Dortmund to follow it up. And the likelihood is that we're talking about Liverpool in the semi-final, and they took it to penalties against PSG. So they lost at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And you can't make excuses around that. But when you consider who they played and you think, well, any of the other teams who are in the quarterfinals, if they had gotten PSG, the likelihood is that they also would have gotten the same result. They would have also been knocked out of the Champions League. So,
but Jay, if I were to steal from a page from your book where you say, if you're looking to go deep, then you lament with, PSG, they end our run. But if you're going to go all the way, it doesn't matter who you face, because eventually you have to beat those guys. And with them being on top of the table, they were the team that were favorites at that point. We're like, we threw PSG, who they play? They played Real Madrid. They played a couple of big games, and they won all of them. And you're like, okay, these guys are the business. They've got a Darwin Núñez, but they win. They've got a Luis Diaz, but they win. They figured it out. And for them to fall,
that's the nature of the cup, right?
Yeah,
and the nature of penalties, because the results against PSG is that Liverpool won away from home, and then they drew at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's the league, they got 4 points of PSG. Which Arsenal beat PSG in the league phase. They got 3 points. And that counts for something, I suppose, because they haven't met PSG in the knockouts. So it's like more than like winning and drawing, what really can you do? It's the lottery of the penalties. What I'm saying about their result, Chuck, is that it's not out and out disappointing. So it's not in the same breath as a Plymouth being knocked out by Plymouth in the FA Cup. Mm-hmm. It's one where you look at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, you did as much as you can without actually winning that tie. So I don't look at that result against PSG and think, man, that is disappointing for everything that you did in the Champions League up to that point.
I mean, I take it in the context of you guys went out early to Plymouth and that was a shock result, and then as you said, in the week from hell, as the PSG result, then it's the Carabao Cup, where you were heavy favorites as well against Newcastle. Fine, Newcastle have shown good form and good character in the league, and you thought to yourself, they'll make a fight of it, but you still edged towards Liverpool, especially with Mo Salah in that form. And then for it just to be with you guys are just in the league, in real time, it feels...
Not just the league, Chuck. You can't speak about the league as just the league. Like, oh man, you had like 4 equal opportunities to win trophies, and it's like, oh man, you're just down to 1. It's the league.
It's big, and I mean... It's big because I think of a conversation, I think it was on the overlap, where Carragher was saying it's special when you win the league. It's good when you win the league once or twice, but speaking to Paul Scholes at this point, but it's real special players for someone like you, Paul, who's won 6 or 7 times. And just before he goes on, Paul is like, 6 or 7? I've won 11, buddy. 6 or 7.
Very real.
But it is a big thing, Jay, the league. That's why I can tell you, when you look at it in hindsight, for me, I think you're top of the table as Liverpool, but you're feeling down. That's the feeling that I have if I were a fan. Oh man, it could have been so much better. We could have at least had something to celebrate our hard work till this point in the season. But I think, Jay, the league is a big thing. You don't look at that and say, because the truth of the matter is, and the noise has been made because Man United have won the Carabao Cup and Liverpool have won the Carabao Cup. Pep, I keep remembering these words where Pep's like, when I win them, no one cares.
That's true.
But when the teams are desperate and they want them, then they're a big thing. So, I mean, we can choke off the Carabao Cup. Really, when we talk about treble, we talk about FA Cup, Champions League, and the league itself. And yeah, we talk about there's not much that they could have done with PSG being as hot as they are. Give them a pass. The fact that they can secure one of those big titles, I think you look back at that and say, okay, it was a fair enough season, and the points difference, I think, as well. If things were close and they
Ain't no
were
fair enough
just,
season. It's a great season. It's a great season when you're in the league.
but but there's that somber anticlimactic thing to it because you
Right
can't be
now,
out
right
now.
now in
Yeah, right
March.
now.
When
Yeah.
we get to May and the context around Liverpool specifically as well, as I mentioned, with their relationship in the league, there's also the fact that they do have one Premier League title, but that was one without fans.
Hmm.
This one is going to hit like crack when that whistle and that result happens, which confirms them as league champions, and they are also then on the bus, and there's a million scousers lining up the streets to greet their Premier League champions. All of what happened in the middle of March is going to be long forgotten.
Let's hope so. Unless Arsenal have got their own bus, and you're like, damn it, we should have won it. If it's those guys who got into the final, we should have won it. But let's see how that season peters out. Let's see how that season ends because they're in a good spot in the in the Premier League. And as you said, Jay, it's a great thing. But in the moment, for me, it's you do feel down.